Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Recently, a friend of mine asked me to make a flag with the "Don't Tread on Me" snake, and I said, "Hey, yeah, that sounds like fun." So this is my version of the "Don't Tread on Me" American flag, and let me show you how I made it. The first thing I do is take some pre-made strips. These are 1.5 inches wide by 37 inches long, and there's 13 pieces, and I have them pre-stained. I usually, if I'm cutting a bunch of wood for some flags, I'll cut enough for 3 or 4 flags, and then a lot of times I'll pre-stain them. And I really like the rustic look, so I don't really get that worried about the stain or even the wood. On this particular one, I didn't even burn it. I just uh, I just left it alone, and a friend of mine had asked me to do a "Don't Tread on Me," so that was a new one that I hadn't done. So I just thought I would make it as clean as possible. So after I get it all glued up, which doesn't take very long, and I love my new pipe clamps. I'm really having good success with these pipe clamps and flattening. I'm learning how to glue them up and flatten them a lot nicer. Although the rustic flags, I don't like them to be too perfect. I want them to be rustic and, kind of handmade. Anyway, I clamp them all together and then I flatten them with some boards on top. I clamp the tops so, get them down as flat as I can. And I let that whole thing sit overnight. I think I put one in the middle too. The flatter the better when you're trying to do a glue up. It saves on everything, whether it's sanding or planing or anything. And I'm learning the hard way. Anyway, the next day, I get my snake template out. I get my Dremel, and I use the smallest bit, which is I think the 105, and I start doing the outline of all the stars in this "Don't Tread on Me" template. These templates are really the way to go for me. I mean, they're cheap. I think I'll leave a link in the description of where to get them, but I think they're only like $8 or $9. Anyway, I carve this. I just start carving the outline of all these stars and the snake, and that takes a little while. So I usually put on my earphones and listen to some music and just carve away. I did make a video on how to carve stars in a rustic American flag. Check that one out. Anyway, yeah, the battery does not last long in these Dremels, so I'm constantly having to change them. But anyway, I get all the stars carved and the snake, and that's what it looks like. Then I proceed to get the whole shop warmed up to 75 degrees, and I'm using super clear tabletop epoxy. Once the room's up to 75, I clean off the flag really good. And I'm going to do 2 coats, and each coat is 16 ounces of this tabletop. The first one's kind of a seal coat, so I'm just getting it on there and trying to keep the air bubbles from coming up on the next coat. I mix it for about 3 minutes, and then I pour it out on this flag. Cover up the snake first, and I kind of like it when the wood's not perfect. Like, you see how you have lines going through the blue in the flag part. Um, I don't know. It kind of adds character. So I don't even try to, like, probably you would stain those little white stripes that are going through the flag, but like for me, it just adds character to the flag. So I haven't really bothered in most of the flags that I've done. I just let them, it just kind of looks cool, and it kind of gives it a little character. Anyway, here I try to spread out all this epoxy through the whole thing. And I need to order some more of these little notched trowels, these little white plastic ones. They don't last very long. I mean, if you do, once you do a epoxy table and, a few flags, they're getting pretty wiped out. So I think I'm going to see if I can order those in bulk. Anyway, I spread this 16 ounces of tabletop epoxy, super clear. I spread it over the whole flag. And at this point, I'm not really running too much over the edge, a little bit, but not a lot, because that'll be on the next coat. Really, I just want to get it as even as possible over the whole thing. The room temperature right now is right around 76, and that seems to be really nice for this particular epoxy. I then go around all the edges and try to make sure it has, the first coat of coverage on all these edges, and fill in any little gaps that might not have got enough epoxy on them. I always like to leave a little bit of epoxy in the cup just for doing this. Yeah, so I go around and I touch up all these little sections. And then that's it. I get the torch and I torch out all the air bubbles that are in it. And then let it sit for, it's going to sit for 4 to 5 hours before I can put this next coat on, which I set the timer and 8 o'clock. So this is 8 o'clock at night, 4 hours later. And this is the 16 ounce. I put 16 ounces on the second coat, and it's looking pretty good. I realized though when I was doing this second coat that it actually needed more than 16 ounces. I don't know if the flag, it took a little more for coverage. But this is the second coat, and I get it all spread out. I try to waterfall it over all the edges and basically let it sit. At this point I realized I needed more epoxy, so I mix up another 8 ounces of epoxy. It just didn't seem like it was covering good enough, so I mix 8 more ounces. So this flag ended up taking 40 ounces of epoxy, tabletop epoxy. So right here, the area that didn't seem like it got enough, I go through and fill, and then I waterfalled it over all the edges too to make sure it was looking good. I then torch it and let it sit overnight. The next day, it's looking good. Here's what it looks like, and I get the table all cleaned up. Put down a blanket and sand the back of it. Get all these epoxy drips off the back of it, and that doesn't take long. I then get out some hanger material. Once I get it all wired up, it's time to take it upstairs. Thanks for watching this episode of Outlaw Woodworking. I hope you enjoyed the Don't Tread on Me flag. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell, and I will see you next time. Later.